Town Council for Monday, June 20th, 2022. Please call the roll.
Mayor Coos, Mrs. Lorenz,
Here.
Mr. Nord,
Here.
Ms. Smith, Ms. Cummings,
Here.
Mr. Preston, Mr. McCarthy.
Here. All right. We have no public comment for the work session, so we will move on to a presentation on pavement condition index assessment. Ms. Reese.
Right. Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. Just want to introduce to council members this evening, we've got a couple of topics to cover with you. So we're going to stay on kind of a tight timeline, lots of information to share, and then we have built in some time for questions. And so we're going to start this evening with Mr. Otto and Mr. Stefanski, who are going to talk about the pavement rating index assessment. And so we've got a PowerPoint we'll go through. There's a copy of the PowerPoint at your table this evening to follow through and take notes. And then following that conversation and responding to your questions, we'll move on to our second agenda topic, which pertains to the FLOC license plate recognition system. So I'm going to invite these gentlemen to come forward and talk a little bit about pavement ratings and pavement management systems. So fun stuff. Looking forward to it. Thank you.
All right. Well, thank you all for your time today. The council, everybody here. Thank you. My name is Joe Stefanski. I will be presenting the results of the Town of Normal Pavement Rating Asset Assessment and Management Project. My colleagues, Lax, Shariar, and I got a chance to work on this project together. We were fortunate enough, so very happy to get a chance to work on it. And also to that, thank you to Ryan, Jason, Eric, Cassidy, Daniel, and Alex with the town for providing all the information that we used during this project that we used to develop the findings that we are here presenting to you today. So first, what do we mean when we say pavement management? You can see the many parts here of the process around these ovals around the slide. Pavement management is an objective, data-driven approach to help a community make decisions on what treatments to do, when to do them, and where. Pavement management stresses a benefit-cost selection of projects, prioritizes keeping our good roads in good condition through the use of early preservation activities starting early in a pavement's life. And this is opposed to that worst first approach where the roads we work on are the ones that look the worst at any given day. Looking at that example performance model graph in the middle of that slide there, one of the reasons we use benefit costs is because we see a nonlinear relationship of a pavement's deterioration over time. So you can see that, follow that black line in that curve, in the middle of a pavement's life, we get cracking developing across that pavement. We get water that goes into those cracks, down into the lower layers of our pavement structure, and through our wonderful freeze-thaw cycle that everybody knows about that we have here in the Midwest, those lower layers, the foundation of our structure becomes compromised. And this ultimately leads to accelerated deterioration and ultimately, expensive costs. So if you think about it, by applying maintenance or less expensive treatments before we go down that roller coaster ride, we can protect that pavement in good condition and hold off that deterioration longer. So from those ovals, you saw that we start out the project with data collection. For this project, we used a laser crack measurement system. And this was last July, so July of 2021. Or an LCMS, laser crack measurement system. You can see in the pictures there. That laser information is collected continuously, and it is processed to identify the location, the type, severity, as well as the type of crack. And ultimately, we aggregate that information into a pavement rating. That process, again, is automated. We are able to do 100% coverage of the pavement that we drive over. All right, for this project, we are using PCI for the pavement ratings. PCI is a well-known, it's a national ASTM standard for rating pavements. The PCI ranges from 0 to 100, 0 being a failed pavement, 100 being a new pavement. And in the pictures on the next few slides, we'll give you some ideas of what different PCI scores could look like, and also mention kind of different treatments in the zones that we are, trying to hit or be proactive at hitting. You start in the upper left-hand corner there, new pavement, that 90 to 100 PCI range. You're not doing too much there, but you work your way into the 80s and the 70s. This is where we want to use crack sealing, light patching in this area. Once we drop below that into the 60s and to the 50s, this area is indicative where we want to proactively treat with surface treatments, maybe a thin overlay, microsurfacing. This is where we're at the top of that roller coaster ride. We haven't fallen off yet. A lot of times these pavements don't look like they need attention. There's probably worse roads, but this is where we can get that proactive treatment on the roadway, save that those lower layers of the pavement before they degrade from freeze-thaw damage. Once we drop below that, the 40s and on down, we've likely lost that structural integrity. We've had a lot of damage underneath the surface. At that point, we can no longer preserve this structure with a less expensive technique. All right. Here is an example of the information that we are collecting. The right-of-way picture there on the left, we are taking those pictures every 20 feet. And the laser information on the right two images, that information is taken continuously, and you can see the automated information overlaid on those laser scans. They're actually laser scans, not pictures. And you can see the overlaid information showing the location of the crack, the severity of the crack, and as well as some like a box or a straight line, those being type of cracks that the software is interpreting. And all the information, including all those pictures, all those laser scans, was provided to the town on an external hard drive with a spreadsheet to help navigate the information. All right, so we mentioned last July of 2021, here are the condition assessment results from that survey. The network average PCI was about a 65. And note, this does include work that was done later in 2021, as well as some estimated deterioration on roads that weren't worked on. It's a good cross-section of condition of roadways. Overall, this is better than we see on local agency roadways, which is usually in the PCI of 50 to 60 average. So you guys are better than average at a 65. But it is important to keep track of this map from a network perspective over time. You want to make sure that you're maintaining or improving on that, and you have to have some benchmark. So, the next time you do an inspection, you want to be able to come back and compare it to this survey. All right, so we take that condition information and we put it into a pavement management software. For this project, we use Paver. Paver is a nationally recognized pavement management software. It's easy to use, has a lot of functionality. A lot of the slides, a lot of the graphs and maps that are in this presentation came right out of the software. So it's very useful software. Once you have all the project information in Paver, the software runs the analysis, outputs the treatment plan. As part of the project, the town is going to receive a 1-year license for the software, as well as software training, which we will lead for all the attending staff. All right, so here you can see a little bit on the inputs to the software, how the treatments are chosen in the software. This is for your asphalt surfaced roads. You can see we program how the PCI cutoffs, so the condition ratings, where PCI ratings where treatments are feasible, as well as the functional class. So you can see the two tables. One is for your collectors arterials, the other for your residential. So all the different ranges where treatments can be considered feasible. You can see that we're including crack seal and distress repair, preventative maintenance activities, those that are designed to keep your good pavements in good condition. That major M&R column, the two right column on each table, that's where the bulk of your dollars are being spent. But we're including those proactive preventative maintenance, pavement preservation activities, as well as a part of the pavement management implementation. And if that pavement segment falls to a level that requires an overlay, but the software, we didn't give it enough funding to do that expensive repair, the software allows us to include an anticipated safety-related repair work. So we can basically keep that road safe for another year, get it to that next year. Hopefully, then we have the budget to do the needed repair on that street. This slide, similar to the last one, this one is for your concrete streets. So again, instead of major maintenance and rehabilitation projects for overlays, mill and overlays, now we see slab replacement and full reconstruction. But otherwise, we're still including those preventative maintenance activities to keep your good roads in good condition, good concrete roads. Okay, so on to the results. So after discussions with Ryan and his folks on the availability of expected budget projections, we did settle on a 5-year analysis window for the project. So for the analysis, we ran multiple, what you can see here, these 5 scenarios, multiple budget scenarios. So first off, that maintain typical resurfacing budget, as well as others that are budget driven, so to say, to increase the budget or decrease, say the do nothing approach. And then we can also run scenarios that are target driven. So say we want to maintain the current condition of our network or increase to a higher PCI. Please note the typical budget was discussed. We did want to keep it as local resurfacing dollars, funding levels. So it does not include that maintain typical resurface budget does not include those maybe less predictable outside sources of funding. And then also you can see on that maintain current condition, that 6 to 7 million that we're showing, we did do some sensitivity assessments with that number. We didn't want to give a single number, so we did kind of give a little bit of a range for that number as well. And then also, I guess you could look at the top 2 scenarios, and those have that largest funding requirements. One thing the town could consider is running a longer scenario window, so say a 10-year window, and that would bring down those required annual amounts to hit those targets. Okay, so with each of the scenarios comes the predicted PCI, or that pavement condition index, over the 5-year analysis period. You can compare, we especially like to look at this and compare the typical resurfacing budget, that dark blue line, with the maintain current condition line, that green line. We want to see, do those lines diverge over time? And if so, like we are seeing here, that would suggest that we have an underfunded roadway program with that typical resurfacing budget, and that over time we would expect the network to deteriorate without additional funding beyond that level. All right, again, analysis results for that typical scenario, or resurfacing budget scenario. This time we're looking at the condition ratings within each of the PCI qualitative ranges. You can see the scale on the right there. And we're looking at it for each of the year that we ran the analysis for. So you can see the progression over time. Are we increasing our good roads or decreasing our bad roads? You see those good roads, fair to good, so the yellow to green. We're at least keeping those steady, or maybe even increasing that from the start to the end of the 5-year. But you can see that with the current resurfacing budget, those serious roads, that gray, that brown bar, we do see that increasing, pretty significantly. This again supports that conclusion that we do see an underfunded roadway program with that typical resurfacing budget. And lastly, on the analysis results, we will provide the populated database to the town. It contains all these scenarios that we ran, so that, you know, ultimately they can be updated and reran in the future. All right, so at the end, you know, what do we get from doing all this pavement management, pavement preservation? So first off, these numbers are not yours. They are just sample. But what we found by using pavement management techniques over the life of a pavement, an agency can save money and make their pavements last longer. The goal is to stop using that first approach, where the roads we work on are the roads in the worst condition. That top graph you can see there. So we wait until something gets really bad, and we do something really major to that road. With a preventive maintenance approach, you see that graph at the bottom, just like we brush our teeth, we put oil in our car, we want to use more proactive treatments while things are still running smoothly. And ultimately, this will yield a lower unit cost to maintain the roadway throughout its life. And ultimately, that makes best use of our taxpayer dollars. So bringing this all together, the concepts of pavement management, they're not giving you the answer, but they are providing an agency with some really powerful tools. That concept, you can see that another tool in the tool belt, and some valuable information as the town develops its capital improvement plan. We know there's many factors that are considered that we have developed in the program. We're able to put a lot of local information, the condition information, age information, that budget information, all together in one system. But we know there's a lot that we're not taking into account. So we're not taking into account contractor availability, the ever-changing asphalt prices. So that's why we say this is another tool in the tool belt, not the answer key. Pavement management wants to use more preventive maintenance strategies, along with those rehabilitation projects that the town's already doing. So we're not trying to replace the system. We're trying to provide a system that runs alongside and it augments, and it reflects a lot of what the town is already doing, while adding in some of those, here and there, adding in some of those proactive, keep your good roads in good condition activities. And the data in this project was gathered independently and analyzed objectively. It can be used to support decisions that that the town makes. And then lastly, we do know that the analysis drives at a network level optimization. So we're not looking at project level assessment here. But the tool can be used to iterate. So if we go into the software, we kind of do some iterations where we make some choices, we rerun the analysis. We can take advantage of a lot of that local information that is in the system. All right, and then finally some conclusions on the project as a whole. Take time to consider the different options that you can have with program lengths. We talked about the 5-year versus the 10-year analysis window. Consider some different funding targets. Do we want that PCI of 71, or is a higher or a lower target more appropriate for the town? And the treatment strategies. We can iterate and choose different strategies for that as well. That over time we can align those with the town's goals. Keep your pavement management system updated in the paver software. You want to go in annually, put in the work that was actually done in that past year. We can rerun those scenarios, rerun the capital improvement plan, get 1 year of additional recommendations on projects from the system. Consider adding structural testing to get a better idea of the underlying layers of your pavement structure. And lastly, we do know that the condition predictions that we are making in this will erode over time, will be less accurate the further out we get from the inspection. So we do recommend doing a reinspection on your pavements every 3 to 5 years. And if you do this, we do believe it will yield a healthy pavement management system for the town. Thank you for your time today.
Did you have something to say, Ms. Reese?
Yes,
Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Stefanski. And council members, that's a lot of information on 18 or 19 slides and much to absorb, but I know Mr. Otto is going to talk a little bit about what does that mean to us in terms of a pavement management system. I think a couple of key takeaways that I hope council can soak up in these slides. For example, slides 11 and 12 indicate some of the strategies that can be used. I think one takeaway is just identifying that there's various things, various actions that can take place to preserve pavement, improve pavement, and we know we have a ways to go. We know we have improvements to make, but I think that we should be proud of what we've done so far, knowing that we'll do more. We'll continue to do more. What is not included here is, Mr. Stefanski referenced it, is we have a number of projects that are funded through different sources. There's one neighborhood that we could identify on this map that is identified potentially as poor streets conditions, and we're designating some American Rescue Plan dollars towards that. So we have some other solutions. In the meantime, though, slide 13, I think, is a good slide that identifies when we're looking at funding sources and where we want to go and how to make progress in our streets and our pavement system. We need to know what we're shooting for. And so that's what we will be talking further about. Where do we want to go and how will we get there? And Mr. Otto leads the team on how we get there. So for now, I'm going to ask Mr. Otto to talk a little bit about this information and the pavement management strategy and how he uses this. Because this is
Excuse
just
me.
one tool in the tool belt.
Excuse me. I thought this was to go over the report that we paid for. Do we get to see that, the actual data?
Mr. Otto will talk about the actual final written report.
Thank you, Ms. Reese. Yeah, the final report will be completed before June 30th. We're finalizing that now. The results of the report are included in here, but the final draft will be completed after our conversation tonight. And as ARA finalizes that, we will provide that to you sometime around June 30th.
So then this is just a sales pitch for a potential software solution?
This is the ratings results and the results of the paver analysis. We plan to use the paver analysis to, as Mr. Stefanski referenced, enhance. It's another tool in our tool belt. We'll use this to help us analyze different scenarios. What happens when we have a road that has cracks in it and we seal it? What kind of lifespan do we have? And as time goes on, as we update this and get more data, it will become more meaningful to us in terms of how much extra life are we getting out of a dollar that we put into a pavement early on in its life versus how much life do we get into a dollar when we wait 20 years, say, on a pavement. So this is a tool that's going to help us, I think. It's going to help us become more cost effective and help us, the report, when it's completed, will help us to understand what other communities as well as our own are experiencing in terms of pavement management and best management practices.
Okay, so then this
Mr.
is
Nord,
just software.
Mr.
We're not going
Nord,
to see the data.
Mr. Nord, we're not doing Q&A just yet. Mr. Otto's making comments.
Oh.
We will get to your questions in due time, but we're going to let him go ahead and make his comments if he's done or if he's got more. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. McCarthy. Our pavement management strategy going forward, we have budget in this fiscal year for some pavement preservation. Looking ahead, knowing that is a best management practice, we're looking to do some of that. As council is aware, we've created we've purchased a crack sealer as well as what we call a Falcon asphalt patcher to help us with some of our maintenance activities. So all that both work that's done in-house and work that's done with our own crews will be included in this. And as I mentioned earlier, as we update the data, as we understand better how much additional life we can get out of payments, it's going to really help us drive those conversations. And a lot of it will be conversations with you as a governing body in terms of policy. What level of streets are we targeting? Where does the funding come from? How are we doing year after year? So I think it's going to be an ongoing conversation in terms of budgeting. It's going to be an ongoing conversation in terms of the types of treatments we use. We're continually experimenting with new things and looking for more cost-effective ways to manage our pavements. One of which you just approved at the last meeting, which is a new crack and seat technique that we're trying on Parkside Drive. So we're looking forward to that, as well as other things that ARA is going to bring out in the information they're providing to us.
Excellent. Thank you. I'm excited to start. I know all of us, for different reasons and purposes, been looking forward to getting this, and we're looking forward to the rest of the report. Council questions. I know, Mr. Nord, I'll give you first crack since you were jumping the gun there, and then Ms. Lorenz.
All right. I just have to bust out rolling contact fatigue. That topic is something my son studies, and was thinking about that in terms of tires going over pavement and how we get rolling contact fatigue. And we have cracks in the pavement. And so what I'm curious about, I'm gonna pose this as a question. Would it be safe to say that we are underfunded in terms of making progress on the rating of our pavement? Did I hear you say that?
Yes.
Because there was one slide here with the line graph, and it showed that if we, that one, that if we stayed in the typical resurfacing budget, we are going to degrade over time. So is that
Yes.
fair to say that that's one takeaway?
Yes.
Yes, and I think that's one of the ongoing conversations that we would like to have is what does that line look like in terms of a 10-year time frame? And those are scenarios that we can look at as well as we continue this conversation. We don't look at this presentation as the end of the conversation. This is just the start. And so we look forward to those conversations with the council. But the data shows that additional funding is needed to maintain
Yeah.
our streets.
And as a person sitting here on a governing body, I find that a pretty significant finding. The other question I have, and this is probably more for our guest, in your opinion, are we using, with the streets that we have out there, are we using adequate technology that is allowing a reasonable lifespan? And by that, I'm going to dive into a specific example. A few years back, maybe 3 or 5 years back, we had a north-south route to Wanda Avenue that was concrete, I believe, and then it was about 30 years old, and it was in pretty bad shape. And so, and this was a stretch that goes through a residential neighborhood, and so we fixed it with a different technology. It was, and I'm not going to remember what the specific was, but we didn't replace it one for one. It wasn't old concrete replaced by new concrete. It was something else, and it was considerably less expensive. Are those kinds of technologies proving to be good, or are we getting thrown off the mark and therefore more likely to have a faster degradation? What is your opinion on what you see in terms of the general structure of how we're building the roads?
I don't see anything as far as something that I would see as an acceleration of deterioration on the roads. I know some of the concrete roads we did see had some of the old concrete from that would have had some chemical alkali silica reaction. But other than that, I didn't see anything that that would tell me that you guys are on a wrong path. But and nobody knew about the the ASR concrete. It was just not known in the day, and you have to fix it, and unfortunately it kind of takes away some of it just erodes at your joints, and you have to deal with it. But
I'm thinking about some up near where one of our council members live in the Savannah Green neighborhood. I mean, those are concrete streets that have fallen apart. Now, we didn't put those in. I believe the developer did. Was that the material that was substandard at the time?
I'm not sure.
Yeah, I can jump in on that
Yeah.
one. Mr. Stefanski is not as familiar with the whole system. In Savannah Green, we believe what we're seeing is some material issues, but mostly workmanship issues in terms of when the streets were put in and how they were installed by the contractor. So I believe there's a lot of workmanship issues in terms of how the subgrade was prepared and how the streets were installed.
And then the last question I have is, you mentioned that the results here then afford us a 1-year license fee. How much is an annual license fee, and what if you don't renew that?
The annual license is $1,000 a year. If you don't renew it, you don't get future software upgrades or technical support. But to be honest, a lot of folks just kind of wing it, and you
Take a
can use the
snapshot.
software as long as you want.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Go ahead.
Hang on just a minute, Mr. Nord. Did you have something you wanted
I
to
was
jump
just
in
going
on?
to follow up on Ms. Lorenz's comments and Mr. Stefanski's comments. The data and this information in this report, it is what it is, and we're not going to shy away from it. We're going to use this to lay out our plan for the future and how we can make progress. So, our overall average rating of 65 is okay. Nothing to be ashamed of, and it's a good starting point now that we are moving into a more strategic pavement management process. And then we will, of course, be talking about to what level do we want to fund greater investment in pavement management, and some of it will be capital, some of it will be operating for maintenance and the like. So this is, as Mr. Otto indicated, this is just one of the first steps to move forward.
Mr. Nord?
Thank you. So this report is not available to the council or the public to see how our roads were graded. Is that correct? It's not available
It will be available by the end of the month.
by the end of the month?
Yes.
And you said you completed the assessment or the data collection back in July of 2001?
2021.
2021.
July of 2021.
Correct.
So now, gosh, we're almost a year. Does it usually take a year from the time you complete the collection before we have something to see?
It's definitely several months. I wish it was quicker, but
Well, we're 12 months,
it's-
almost 12.
I think we provided initial results in February.
Yeah, and with that, there was some back and forth. The draft results were provided to us. Staff reviewed those, discussed some of the ratings with ARA, and they were able to go back and look at some of the draft results and recognize some of the tweaks that we needed to make in terms of how the software interacted and rated those. And so
Did any of the ratings
I
change?
appreciated their efforts in that regard, in terms of, especially, I think one of the areas we saw the need for additional work was in the areas of our concrete streets and how the software picked up the cracking. Correct me if I'm wrong, Joe.
Yep.
And I'll let you explain further.
I
Well, I want to hear about this.
Excuse me, I only have so many minutes, so I don't want to give up all my time. I want to get some of my questions answered, so if somebody else wants to hear, I'll let you guys use your time respectfully. So then, going forward, since we have to use your software, it sounds like, or the proposal is going to be to use your software, which doesn't sound like it's that expensive. $1,000 a year is fairly minimal, I will admit. But are we required to use your company to collect the data every time?
Nope.
Okay, so then that could be bid out.
Yes.
Okay. And then when you were analyzing the local funding, what funding sources were you looking at for local funding?
General fund and
The-
motor fuel tax.
That was pretty much a discussion with Ryan to, to come up with an agreeable, just a local funding level that we felt comfortable with that could be counted on from year to year.
Well, I'm not looking at the level, I'm looking at the sources. That's my question.
The
Believe it's
sources are
motor
motor
fuel
fuel tax and roadway fund.
Roadway fund.
Yeah,
The
so it's
state motor fuel tax or the local motor fuel tax?
state motor fuel tax.
Okay,
It's the monies that are available for street resurfacing from motor fuel tax. So it's not the whole motor fuel tax pot. It's
the
in
states.
the street resurfacing line item, and then the street resurfacing line item in the roadway fund, plus the pavement patching line item as well. So those are all funds that we utilize for either road resurfacing or pavement patching. So those are the dollars.
Okay,
that
because-
we're-
Clear, the roadway fund includes the locomotive fuel tax plus additional funds.
Yes. So the roadway fund is funded from the general fund.
Yes, but last year, I mean, the roadway fund doesn't get the local motor fuel tax, that goes directly into the general fund. Last year,
It was
the
transferred,
general
Western
fund
North.
transferred
you said that wrong.
$485,000 to the roadway fund.
No, I didn't bring my budget, but in the interest, I don't want to interrupt
So-
you because I know we're on a tight timeline, so.
Then, another question then is, will this be put into a format that's available for the public to see? Like paper, something that they can actually see?
Yes, the report will be, when it's completed, will be made available on our website.
Okay, then my last statement is I was disappointed by this meeting because I was under the impression we were going to get that report. It's something that council that I've asked for since back in, February when we had the preliminary budget come before us and we had these roads that we're working on. Repeatedly asked for the data. What do our streets look like? And now we're, almost at the end of June. I still can't even see if the money that we're being asked to approve matches up with the data that we've collected.
So,
Did you have it?
I was just going to say, I'm sorry, disappointed. I would ask Mayor Pro Tem and council if you're comfortable in wrapping up this topic, knowing that this isn't the end of pavement discussions. We're going to talk pavement a lot more in the future. But if council's comfortable, we could move on to talk about our second topic of the evening.
Absolutely. If Ms. Cummings, if you have something to add, yield. Thank you.
I did ask Mr. Otto and Mr. Stefanski to stay handy if council does have any individual questions you would like to follow up separately. Please know that that's also available to you. So thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you.
That was interesting.
Thank you very much. Appreciated
very
the
much.
information.
I totally.
As we're switching topics, I just want to say it's an interesting next level of information to support all the other tools and engineering perspective and expertise we have in house, and I'm excited to see this put into place. Next on our agenda is the flock license plate recognition system. We have Chief Petrilli
Yes.
and go ahead.
Two more individuals joining us this evening. Thank you for being here. This is another important topic that we want to highlight for council this evening. This isn't a new discussion to the community, but it is a new discussion to us specifically. And so I'm going to ask Chief Petrilli to get us started.
Thank you. Appreciate everybody's time tonight, and we'll be respectful of that and get into the presentation very soon. Seated to my left, VP with Flock Safety, Josh Thomas, who flew in from Atlanta today, to be available to answer questions and kind of go through the presentation. What we're going to do today, and we're excited because this is a really progressive public safety project that we've been researching now for about 6 to 8 months. We presented this material in a similar presentation as to what you're going to see tonight in front of the Community Engagement and Culture Board back in April. And this presentation is going to be very similar to that. So Josh, I'm going to turn it over to you. We'll get right into the presentation, then we'll have time for questions at the end.
All right, thanks, folks. Yeah, my name is Josh Thomas. I'm with Flock Safety. Is there, do I need to just jump through this?
Enough. Do we have the updated PowerPoint? I think it's coming. So,
Just keep going?
oh, there it is.
Oh, there we
Thank
go.
you.
Thank you. Often technology doesn't work as well as that, so that's great. Thank you for making this happen. Yeah, my name is Josh with Flock Safety, so I do appreciate the time tonight. Mayor, council members, city manager, I really do appreciate you inviting me to come here and get an opportunity to speak a little bit more about this. So our mission as a company is to eliminate crime. Full stop. We say that knowing that those are audacious words to say out loud, and it's incredibly difficult to actually deliver on this mission, but we're seeing signs of real progress happening in cities all around this country. And that only is possible with good technology, good people, good training, good law enforcement, and good policies. It relies on members like yourself helping establish really great policies. If we all work together, we have seen a tremendous impact on crime, and I'll show you some examples of that here in a second. Here's what we're seeing though around the country, and then this is going to be no shock to anyone here. Unfortunately, crime rates have been rising in the last couple years. We've seen reports coming out all over the country about crime rates going up. Not only that, but I think you all probably have seen this as well, staffing shortages. It's really hard to hire great people these days. So you combine those two things for a law enforcement agency, that's a really difficult challenge to try to solve. And then we also know the backdrop of what's happening in America. We know that there's a call for more trust, more objectivity, more transparency and accountability in our public safety infrastructure. And so we believe this is an opportunity for us to work together to try to solve all of these combined problems. Unfortunately, we can look across the state here of Illinois and see the violent crime rate is rising here. That's happening all around the country, but it's even higher in this state of Illinois. And there's an opportunity for us to do something about that. Because crime shouldn't be this hard to solve. It really shouldn't be. But unfortunately, today it is. If you look at property crimes, these are things that are typically like someone steals a package off your doorstep, they rifle through your mail because maybe they're trying to get a credit card statement and try to steal your identity. Unfortunately, those types of crimes are only cleared at about a 15% rate. So that means if you're the victim of crime, 4 to 5 times that person's going to get away. Violent crime is better, but it's still really, really hard to solve violent crime. Now, the reason for all of this is not because police aren't trying really hard. It's because they lack the evidence to do much in a lot of situations. I mean, think about the typical example of someone, again, stealing a package off a doorstep. Maybe you have a doorbell camera, an outdoor camera. You might see crystal clear the crime in progress. You might get a picture of somebody's face. But if you don't know that person and the police don't know that person, it's really difficult to do much with that. Like the CSI stuff that we see on TV, that isn't real, where you just plug a face in and you can just identify them anywhere you want to. There are some companies that do that. We do not. We believe that there is a gross violation of privacy when you start going too deep down some of these roads. However, there's an opportunity for us to provide better evidence, and that's what we want to touch on a little bit. But when you look at the community at a whole, when you talk to people, this is what we all care about. Right? We just heard about dollars and effectively using those dollars, especially when you're allocating those dollars from this council chamber. But we also all want to not just feel safe, but actually be safe, feeling that we're seeing the crime rates actually drop. And like we said before, we want objectivity in policing. We say objectivity as opposed to subjectivity. Subjectivity meaning human bias, things that are maybe are relative. We want to know the facts objectively. Are we capturing the right piece of evidence to solve the crime? You're not the only city that has actually been thinking about this and leveraging this. Across this state, we work with over 120 different law enforcement agencies right now, including a bunch of your neighbors, from Bloomington to Decatur. We're all over the state here. In fact, I was over in Springfield a couple months ago doing a very similar exercise with the chief of police there presenting to their community. So we have been leveraging this technology, like I said, with over 100 agencies here in the state. So this is what you really get when you get Flock Safety. This is what we wanted to talk about. This is a real device that I'm holding right in front of you. So I wanted you to see it. It's about, the size of a football or so. These will be mounted on poles. I'll show some examples of that in a second. They take a picture of the back of a car. So the back of a car is where the picture is taken. Now we use what's called machine learning on the device. Machine learning will recognize what's in that picture. These are pointed at roadways, and we can identify a type of car, the make, the color, the body style, the license plate, all of the objective details about those cars. And here's why. It's because we can identify if that car is a stolen vehicle or not. And if it is, we can send that alert directly to your law enforcement officer so they can go dispatch and go stop that person and make the arrest. Again, this is objective details. What we do not do, we are not seeing who's in the car. We're not identifying the owners of the vehicle. In fact, none of that data is in Flock Safety. The only data we have is the picture of the back of the car and some of those car details: make, color, type, license plate. This is indiscriminate evidence from these fixed locations. It is not targeting any individual or any person. Like I said before, it is not leveraging facial recognition. It is not identifying people. This is not for traffic enforcement. These are not red light cameras or speed trap cameras. There's no radar on these devices. It's merely taking a picture of the back of a car for the purpose of, if there is a crime, police can get the evidence they need to go do something about it. This is what it really looks like. So these are some real pictures of those cameras mounted on poles. They can be on city infrastructure poles. They can be on poles that we provide. Same cost either way. They're usually solar powered, but we do have powered options as well. And they can basically be installed anywhere where law enforcement needs them to go capture that evidence to go solve crime. So let's talk really quickly about how that actually does solve crime. I'm not a law enforcement professional. I know most of you here are probably not either. We'll rely on the chief to tell us a little bit more about that and how this can actually help in those instances. But proactively, the value here is, like I said before, if a stolen vehicle drives into your community, it's very rarely the case that that person is just joyriding. They're often here to commit additional offenses. In fact, we have some studies that have shown this. We worked with a bunch of different cities outside of Houston. One in particular, in Memorial Villages, I've seen that 60% of all stolen vehicles are associated with additional offenses. So that means they're coming in, stealing a car to commit another crime. So proactively, your law enforcement officers will know if a stolen car enters this town, they will know that, be able to stop that person from committing additional crime. Secondarily, investigatively, that scenario that we talked about earlier, about somebody stealing a package off of a doorstep and how it's very difficult to solve those crimes. Well, what's really powerful about a lot of those doorbell cameras, they can actually see the car that the person drives off in. 70% of crime is committed with the car. So if you can get that suspect vehicle description, a detective can go into our system and use it like an Amazon search. They can literally type in blue, Ford, roof rack, filter the results to that time frame, get that specific suspect vehicle, get the license plate, do their investigation, and go solve that crime. And we know from a lot of primary research that cameras can act as a deterrent to crime. So if we publicize this and say, don't come to this town or you will be stopped if you try to commit crime here, that's another way we can deter crime from happening in this community. So I just want to be very explicit about what it is and what it isn't. This technology is license plate recognition. It gathers that objective evidence and facts about vehicles, not about people. It alerts police of wanted and stolen vehicles. It can be used to solve crime and it adheres to all state laws. Now, what it is not is just as important as what it is. And like I said before, it's not facial recognition. It's not tied to any sort of personally identifiable information. So we don't know who the registered owner is. We don't even have access to that data. It's not used for traffic enforcement. And we only store the data for a limited time. We store it for 30 days. It's all stored in the cloud. Amazon Web Services government cloud, which is the most encrypted cloud server that there is. It's stored there for exactly 30 days, and then it's permanently deleted on a rolling basis. The reason we do that is because we are not collecting this data for any sort of purpose besides allowing law enforcement to have access to evidence if they need to solve crime. We don't sell the data. We don't share it with third parties. It is 100% owned by your city to leverage for the purpose of stopping crime. And that's the last piece that I want to touch on here around privacy, is that we've done a lot of studies on privacy issues. The Fourth Amendment, we are actually 18 months into a voluntary audit with the NYU Policing Project. It's a group out of New York, like I just said, and they study technology companies. They've studied Axon Enterprises, Amazon Ring, ShotSpotter, and they do these audits of them. And they say, hey, these are your policies that maybe need to be improved if you want to do work in more places around the country to protect things like privacy. So we're working with them to help improve everything that we're doing, but we take it really, really seriously. Again, a lot of things that we've already touched on here. But mitigating risk. I think a thing that we all are always worried about when you think about technology, law enforcement, public safety, are what about some of the challenges that may come up with these sort of technologies? The first and foremost thing I'll tell you is that we provide model policy examples about how the technology should be used and how it shouldn't be used based on other law enforcement agencies that we work with. So here's an example from Springfield. We worked with them got their policy. They got it vetted by the ACLU, by the NAACP, before they actually published their policy. So we've provided that example here for your chief. He's used this example, the neighboring examples from Bloomington and other cities around here to draft a policy for this city, what's going to be best here. And that is explicitly explaining how the technology is allowed to be used and what it's not allowed to be used for. And the chief has a copy of that policy. He can share that. Transparency portal. This is a free tool that we provide as well that allows for anyone in the public to see how is the tool being used. This is a website that we can spin up and you can put on your city website or the police website, wherever you want to. It's totally customizable, but it allows the public to have real-time access into, it's updated every single day, real-time access into how is the system being used? What are the policies that are there? So again, just another way that we can help keep transparent communication and open and honest for the public. We touched on this earlier, so I won't go back into detail there. But then I think the place that we want to end tonight on this part before we open it up and give it back to the chief and maybe we open it up to questions is, does it actually work? Does it deliver on the value that we say? And we say, yeah, we've seen it happen. We are helping, as being reported by our departments that we work with, about 500 crimes every single day are being solved with flock safety technology. 500 every single day. This is an example. The first Amber Alert that we were able to be a part of, this little boy named Mateo was abducted by strangers. The chief will be able to tell you this better than me, but stranger on stranger abductions are the worst because they're incredibly hard to solve because they almost always end in a bad outcome. In this scenario, this is a suburb of Atlanta, Georgia. Police had our technology. In under 6 hours, they were able to identify the suspect vehicle and get Mateo back to his mom. He was 1 year old at the time. He'll never remember this incident, thank God, at home, safe with his mom. Right around the corner, right here, when we got our technology installed here in Bloomington. Unfortunately, there was an aggravated assault at a retail location, and a man punched a woman, dragged her into his car, and drove off. Because police had our technology there, they were able to identify that suspect vehicle, find him at a local hotel, and make the arrest and prevent that woman from suffering additional harm. You can see what the chief of police said there at that quote in the bottom left. And Rantoul, 2 weeks after they deployed our technology, they were able to help solve a violent shooting incident that injured children. In just 14 minutes, police were able to get the information of that suspect vehicle and make that stop. Chief of Police said that he would recommend anybody to explore this technology because of how helpful it is. In fact, this city just expanded their technology. I believe they had 35 cameras. They just doubled that amount after a year of using our system because of how incredibly powerful it has been for them. Northbrook, again, similar example. Violent. This person unfortunately left the criminal justice system as a violent offender and committed an additional offense. Police were able to identify that suspect vehicle. When he drove back into town, police in real time got the alert and were able to stop that person and make the arrest. And he did have additional weapons on him at the time. California, similar examples, right? I just wanted to show us some more places that it's not just here in Illinois. We actually work in over 2,000 cities across the country getting illegal weapons off the street. Chesterfield, Missouri, this is a great example of a check welfare. That is somebody who is at risk of harming themselves, a suicide threat potentially. Police here were able to intervene because the suspect vehicle, in this case, went into this mall. And police were able to intervene and stop this person, found the person alive, and they are alive today because police were able to get that information and intervene. We are seeing crime rates drop. When we get critical mass of this technology out, we have good, hardworking law enforcement officers, and we have great policies that are coming forward through these sort of chambers. We see some really powerful results. This is, again, a suburb of Los Angeles called San Marino, California, and they're seeing a tremendous decrease in crime. That's where I wanted to end today, just with that piece of the puzzle. Chief, anything else that you would want to add before we open up the floor?
Sure. I would say I've discussed the technology that Flock Safety offers with the ALPR cameras with a lot of my cohorts and our Chiefs of Large Illinois Cities group. And the technology has been nothing but a positive value add to every agency that has taken it on. I can tell you when we talk about examples, I could throw out a couple here within the last 3 weeks in our own community. One was today. We had, what we thought was an attempted aggravated child abduction that we were getting ready to issue an Amber Alert for, and this would have been the perfect segue to then utilize these cameras if we could to help locate a suspect vehicle. A few weeks ago, we had a stolen car that entered our community that had come out of the Chicagoland area, had been involved, the suspects had been involved in an aggravated carjacking, then came into our community, which ended up causing a shooting incident in our community. And when I look at that instance, when you look at the deployment of these cameras, the way in which we would like to do this is the entrance and egress to the community, right? We have 3 major interstates that run through our community. Had that vehicle left the interstate and come into our community, we had this technology, we may have prevented that crime, and those are stats that you never really get to see. How many crimes do you prevent? But this technology really does leverage that ability for the police department to do exactly that. So, in respect for time, I'd like to open up for questions.
And I'll jump in before we respond to council's questions and indicate this particular type of technology has been on our radar for a while. With Chief Petrilli's predecessor, we've had conversations. So it's nice to be able to move forward, present this to you, and get your thoughts and respond to questions. Some of the questions that we have addressed internally and with others in conversation has been data management. And I think it was highlighted very well in terms of what this technology does not do and what it does do, and how we would want to be respectful, certainly, of all the appropriate things, using it solely for license plate and vehicle recognition. So with that, we'll respond to council questions. It would be our preference, if council's comfortable with this type of technology, to continue to move forward and consider implementation of this. And if that was the route that you agreed with, then we would come back to you at probably a July meeting to move forward with this technology. But now's the time, at least in kind of a short period, to respond to questions and thoughts you have. Thank you.
Questions, Mrs. Cummings?
Yes, thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. First of all, thank you for your presentation this evening. I do have a couple questions, and so hopefully, I know you mentioned Chief Petrilli that because one of my questions was about placement and how will placement be determined, and I know you mentioned that some of the placement will be on our entrances and exits out of the community, but where are some other spots where you considering placing these particular cameras?
So we have an interactive map that I can make available to council on that. And I can tell you the way in which we came up with what we thought would be an optimal way to deploy the cameras. We worked with Flock's data management and analytics team, along with our own analysts that we have. And that was really the primary guiding light for us on where these cameras needed to go, was to cover the entrance and egress in and out of the community. But big focus on school and campus safety as well. And I can tell you that all the cameras were not placed solely on a crime stat driven model. This was really to get us the most coverage within our community that would produce the most results if we needed to do some type of query or search in relation to a crime. But I can make that map available to you to look at it as well.
You. That would be great. My next question also would be to you, Chief. I know that there was talk about you putting together the policy and identifying the usage and how it will be utilized or considered to be proper use within our community. I don't know if is that finished, and when do you expect it to be finished if it's not, and then when do you expect that there's some opportunity for it to be available?
Yes, the policy is finished. I used the Springfield Police Department, what we're calling a model policy at this point, that's been vetted by the ACLU and NAACP in that area. We used that, and I also relied heavily on our Commission for Police Accreditation, CALIA. I made sure that I was falling in line with their best standards and practices on what they expected to see in a good, LPR policy. And I can tell you that our policy, that is the focus, data security, privacy, how the data is going to be used, and exactly what that looks like. But that policy is done, and I'm happy to share that with you.
Thank you. And then last but not least, I know you talked a little bit about the data piece, because I know that for me too, that's a big thing. Have we put policy specifics around like data retention and would be considered proper utilization of that data
Absolutely.
outside of just because I know that beyond what we think, there might be some other usages. So you have to have a solid data usage policy. If not, will that also be included with this policy, or is that separate?
That's included with our departmental policy, yeah, and it's very black and white on exactly how long the data is retained and exactly what it can and cannot be used for.
Okay, thank you very much. That's all I have.
In addition, Chief, in terms of how it can be accessed and by whom, and checks and balances, correct?
There's an auditing system and for that, and I think Block's transparency portal is a nice complement to that as well. That the community will have full transparency on how the system is being used.
Yeah, and just on that auditing thing, every time that any user goes into the system, it's logged. What they did in the system is logged, and that's available permanently as an audit. So that's something that council can always have access to see exactly how it's being used and what they're doing with it.
Thank you very much.
Ms. Lorenz and then Mr. Nord.
Thank you. So how is your camera and technology any different than, say, like a toll booth? When I blow through a toll booth and get the message, get a piece of mail later.
So a couple things I'd say. One is we don't do fines or fees, so there's no we don't issue those at all. These are only going to be used as an investigative or proactive tool for crimes. So that's the first thing.
So
Second thing is-
basically, technology it's the same. I mean,
Actually, it's a little different. That's what I'm saying. So the
Okay.
first thing is kind of a policy thing. The second thing is about the technology itself. So we use what's called machine learning on these devices. So we're taking an actual picture. There's no video. It's a picture of the back of a car. We use machine learning to decode everything in the frame. So the machine learning will tell us it's a blue car. It is what the license plate characters are, what the state of that license plate is. What typically happens with a toll booth camera is it is taking a picture of the license plate and then it's running those against the driver registration records.
right.
And so they are typically like looking at what is in the database that says what type of car is it, what color car is it, not the actual color or what you're actually seeing. It's running against database records, which can be out of date, can be old, can be painted, license plate can be stolen and swapped. We will get you exactly what actually happened in real time.
Okay. So in terms of people getting pictures of their license plate, it's happening on toll roads, maybe
It
for
is
a different
happening on toll roads, correct.
purpose. Okay. Next question I have, and I would be interested in hearing about the placement piece. This may be getting a little bit ahead, but in terms of the cost structure of your product, looking out on your website. So I mean, there's a fee for the camera itself and installation. And then, kind of like in our last presentation, is there software annually that we need to subscribe to?
So we do pretty straightforward pricing. It's $2,500 per camera per year. There's a one-time installation fee for our technician to come out and install it. And that's it. These are annual contracts, $2,500 per camera per year.
Oh, that's it per year.
Yep.
Okay, you're
And
right,
so
yeah.
the reason we were structured that way is because we always upgrade the devices for you. So as long as you're under contract, we are responsible for the hardware.
Okay,
There's no additional cost for software,
okay,
but we're in charge of the hardware. And so if something fails, it's on us to go out there and repair it and fix it.
okay.
So we maintain it as part of our service agreement.
And my last question is, how did we find you? I mean, is this something that you have competitors that we would bid out, or and maybe this is more for you, Chief Petrilli. Obviously, we know Bloomington is using your product. How do we know that this is the right one for us?
So there are other LPR vendors out there, obviously, and we have looked at some of those as well. The very unique piece with Flock that makes it so complementary to our agency is the integration piece that it has with other surrounding communities. We actually entered into an MOU with Flock a while back that there was no cost associated with that allowed us to use the system to get in and kind of kick the tires on the system and see what does the system do, how can you search things, what exactly the usability of the system. And one of the key pieces of that is the integration with other surrounding communities. So for example, during my Chiefs of Large Illinois Cities meeting, Springfield has over 80 cameras. Decatur has 101 cameras now, and it's as simple as a for lack of better terms, like a Facebook invite, that if our PD wanted to be included on their camera system, the use of some of that data, we can request that for law enforcement purposes, because a lot of times you see the nexus of crimes that occur in our communities, they just don't stay here, right? Sometimes we've got people that either commute to our community to commit a crime, or commit a
Going
crime in our
somewhere else.
community and leave and go somewhere else. So it becomes a very effective tool when we can leverage our partnerships with other law enforcement agencies within this camera system database. That's something very unique to Flock.
Okay, so what our neighbors are using, our neighboring cities are using matters in this
It
this
does,
case.
it
Yeah.
does.
Okay, good, thank you.
Mr. Nord?
Thank you. So with the data that it stores for like the usage and searches, will that be made available to the public through this transparency face that you talked about?
The transparency portal.
Portal.
So the individual pictures of cars and license plates is not available in the transparency portal. The volume can be available there, yes.
But as far as what they're searching for, will that be available to the public?
That is available in the audit, yes. So you can see Detective Johnson searched on this date for these parameters, like at the Amazon filters, basically, example. Yes, you can see that in public audit.
Okay, so it'll have like the license plate numbers that he searched
It
for.
won't have the license plate. If he searched for a specific plate number, yes, that would be in the search. Typically, the way people are using the searches though is from a eyewitness description, and eyewitnesses typically don't see the license plate. They tell them it was a blue sedan or a black SUV.
Okay, so that criteria will be recorded and open to
Correct.
the public to see. All right. Then you said that this is the town's data. Can the town back it up?
Can the town back it up? So I guess the question would be for Chief. Do you use evidence.com?
No, we do not.
So what the chief of police can do is they can put it into whatever their evidence management system is. So yes, that all of that will be saved as part of normal evidence management. If it is not going to be actively searched and used, it gets deleted.
And if they were to pull down sections, that would be logged that they pulled down sections if it wasn't a part of some search, just a
Correct.
block of time or something?
Correct.
Okay. Then I know you're talking about a policy. This is probably premature, but whenever you come back to us, policies are written. This is just like speeding law. Those are written. What I'm going to look for is what controls are in place that people don't go around the policy, that they can't find a way to use this for some other purpose, and if they do, it is absolutely logged so that way we can, be transparent with the public. And if there's, somebody that wants to investigate it, they've got the ability to do it.
I think you'll be happy with what we have. There are safeguards in place for exactly what you just brought up, Mr. Nord, that's exactly what we want to do, is preserve the integrity of the searches, of the data that is being used for specific law enforcement purposes.
Yeah, because I was involved with the conversations that kind of sparked whenever Bloomington brought it forward, and these are some problems that I know is going to come back to us, and I want to make sure that we hit them head on.
Absolutely.
And address them. Then the last one is, will these cameras replace any existing cameras, or are these going to be over and above the cameras that we already have?
They will not, and that's why when you look at the number of cameras that when I come back to you with a proposal for this, I think Bloomington initially kicked off with 10 cameras in their community. We're going to be asking for probably double that, because we do not currently have any type of existing infrastructure of a public safety camera system. So when I looked at the options that were available for this, and speaking with my peers and some other communities that have actually incorporated this technology already, what I've done is built out, with the help of Flock's team and our internal team, a map and camera placement that I think really does give us full coverage for our community and allows us to leverage the technology to the best of its ability.
So Normal doesn't have any like cameras at any of our stoplights, or any cameras that you guys currently use for anything?
Not as a public safety camera system, no.
Okay.
Run that red light.
Well, it's not just that, because I know like with the Jelani Day incident, my gosh, if we had cameras like this, that you could plug in license plates, we'd be able to narrow that time frame down. That was, so I could see a lot of benefit. I'm just surprised that we don't have any cameras. So anyway, thank you.
You're welcome.
Anyone else? Thank you very much, gentlemen.
Thank you, folks.
a minute to spare.
I need a motion to adjourn the work session.
So moved.
We have a motion and a second. Please call the roll.
Ms. Cummings,
Aye.
Mr. Nord,
Aye.
Mrs. Lorenz,
Aye.
Mr. McCarthy.
Aye. We are adjourned. We'll start the regular meeting at 7:05 after a brief break. It was a lot. Order a regular meeting for the normal town council for Monday, June 20th, 2022. Please call the roll.
Mayor Kus, Mrs. Lorenz,
Here.
Mr. Nord,
Here.
Ms. Smith, Ms. Cummings, Mr. Preston, Mr. McCarthy.
Here. Please join me in standing for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We have no public comment before the meeting, so we'll move right ahead to the omnibus vote, which are items that are considered to be routine in nature and will be enacted by one motion unless a member would like to remove an item from the agenda this evening. Anyone? And thank you. Before moving forward, just to let the council know that we are removing item E from the agenda, and we will bring that back at a future meeting. Mr. Nord.
I'd like to remove items A, B, and D.
All right. Anyone else? All right. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
And I will second that.
Thank you. We have one item on the agenda, omnibus vote agenda this evening. It's item C, which is a resolution authorizing a contract with Hare and Construction, Inc. for the 2022 sanitary sewer lining contract in the amount of $790,078. Please call the roll.
Ms. Cummings,
Aye.
Mr. Nord,
Aye.
Mrs. Lorenz,
Aye.
Mr. McCarthy.
Aye. The vote is 7-0. And moving forward, we have approval of the minutes of the regular council meeting of June 6th, 2022. Mr. Nord.
I so move.
Second.
Mr. Nord.
On the council minutes, page 5, which is PDF page 8, the 1, 2, 3, 4, the 5th paragraph down, it's not a complete sentence. It's not finished. It says, Mayor Kus explained that the study is for the benefit of the engineering department to make better decisions and believes it is inappropriate for council to make engineering decisions with no blank. It stops right there. So, this isn't complete. With no what? Was it no objective data? We were talking about data, whether it was objective or subjective. So do we want to make a motion to change it tonight? Or since he's not here to respond, what's the protocol?
I would suggest if I could jump in, I think we could, if council wants to make a motion to amend that sentence, or we can certainly bring it back the July 5th meeting. Mr. Corsagrosa, is that accurate? And
That's
thank you
correct,
for the
yes.
catch.
Okay, then I guess since I started, I'd like to make the motion to add the words objective data.
I think that's wonderful.
Jumping in here.
Then data. Because that's what we were talking about. It was getting the analysis report, seeing that beforehand.
My recollection, I could be a little bit, I could be different. I think my recollection was Mayor Coos referenced no civil engineer expertise at the table, but we can certainly go back and check Mayor Coos's comments.
Right, I don't, I'll
Can we just
defer to
take
the
audio?
city attorney here, seated at the table, but we can't at the table make up, as part of a historical record, just ad lib words at the table. We need to go back to some kind of a historical record to get a factual account, not a made up account. Is that accurate?
Be more appropriate to review the video and then amend it, depending on what was said.
Yeah.
Okay, then I would just like to make a motion to table the minutes till next meeting.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Please call the roll.
Mr. Nord,
Aye.
Mrs. Lorenz,
Aye.
Ms. Cummings,
Aye.
Mr. McCarthy,
Aye. The vote is 4-0. Moving right along. We have a report to receive and file a town of normal expenditures for payment as of June 5th, 2022.
I so move.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Mr. Nord.
Thank you. On PDF page 32, under the water capital investment, there's a charge for Paul Davis Restoration for 1202 North Linden Street for $5,232. Could you explain what that's for?
No, I can't. I'll have to get more information and get back to council.
Could we ask Mr. Burkhart, since this is his fund?
Sure, we can have staff come forward if Mayor Pro Tem would like staff to address.
Does Mr. Burkhart reasonably have an idea? I don't want to waste our time if we don't have any ideas. We're happy to bring that data back. He looks like he's coming forward like he has an idea.
Yes, earlier this spring, we had done some work on North Linden Avenue. We had shut water off. When we went to turn the water back on, a leak developed in a resident's home because of that water being turned back on, so this was remediation to repair that leak.
Thank you.
Yep.
Is this typical? I mean, it was the town's fault.
It was the town's fault. It is not typical. I can say I believe this is the first time we've had an incident like that since I've been with the town.
So with the town just repairing a water main, what did we do on the customer side that would cause a leak all the way in their house?
We shut the water off, and when we turned it back on, a leak developed at the dishwasher. Now, was it 100% the town's fault? It's hard to say. The leak wasn't there beforehand. We turned the water back on. They got a puddle of water on the floor in the kitchen when the water got turned back on. So,
How did this problem get brought up to the attention of the town?
when we turned the water back on, the lady came running out the front door and said, "I've got a leak. I've got a leak. Shut it back off."
And in that short of time, we had $5,000 worth of damage?
Yeah.
Wow. Okay, thank you.
Anything further?
Nope.
Please call the roll.
Mrs. Lorenz,
Aye.
Ms. Cummings,
Aye.
Mr. Nord,
Aye.
Mr. McCarthy,
Aye. The vote is 4-0. Next, we have item D, a resolution authorizing the execution of an agreement for technical planning services with the McLean County Regional Planning Commission.
I so move.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Mr. Nord.
Sure. Is someone here from MCRP to ask questions?
McLean County Regional Planning Commission, yes. Is there questions that need to be asked that staff can't answer? Don't know what the
Do we have a
questions are,
question?
but yes, there's someone.
Go
in
ahead
the
and ask your
audience.
question, Mr.
I
Nord. We'll
do have a
decide.
question I'd like to
Please,
ask.
yeah. Go ahead and ask
Plain
it.
County Regional Planning is asking for the
Go-
money.
go
That's
ahead and
what I
ask
want
it.
to ask.
Go ahead and ask it.
Okay. So with this money, could you explain what its purpose is for? Like which specific projects it will be for?
Go ahead, Ms. Reese.
Mr. Nord, I'll ask Ms. Davison to come forward. This is specifically addressing the town's service agreement with them, and certainly we can invite Mr. Lai to come forward as well. But that's certainly a question that staff can answer.
Sure, but McLean County Regional Planning is the one that's asking for the money. We should hear from the person asking.
Sure. So they provide us ongoing services. Many of these services are similar across the years, so it would include helping us prepare. We are part of the Transportation Improvement Plan, the TIP, which is something we need to have in place for certain types of state and federal funding. They work with us on comprehensive planning exercises. In this coming year, we'll be working on a regional comprehensive plan update, which would incorporate more than just normal, but it certainly affects us, and we will be a part of that process. There's a lot of assistance identifying and applying for various types of grants, especially those that can apply regionally. I think we had a few examples in the report itself. So these are services that essentially take a certain amount of staff time on their end, and that's what these funds are intended to cover.
Is any of this performance-based?
I guess I don't know how you would define that.
Like, is there a deliverable that we're expected to receive from this money?
I think when we go into a year with them, we don't typically have a list of, we need you to find us this many grants or update the tip in this many instances, and then measure to see whether they have done those things. I mean, we have expectations that they will assist us with these things every year, and they do. We've certainly can show you successes where we've gotten grants in particular, but a lot of it is, just the procedural things we need their assistance with. They run the MPO, so we are part of that, and they are the staff for it.
Okay, but like they had come before us before for money for the roadway assessment, and we gave them money, and there was supposed to be a deliverable for that. This is now additional money. What's the deliverable? Because I'm just not comfortable giving money out because we always have. We should have some expectation as to what taxpayers are going to get in return for this. So what are these deliverables is what, I would like to hear from McLean County Regional Planning. Or,
Sure.
If it's something you bring forward, then I'm going to write them down. And next year when they come on and say, hey, you didn't provide these things and deny funding because you didn't. So I don't know if, you want to do that on behalf of McLean County Regional Planning or not.
If I could jump in, Ms. Davison, I appreciate the comments, the inquiry, I guess, but this is a service agreement. They're providing services, so they're I think it's identified in the council report. Items numbers 1 through 6, all of the services that McLean County Regional Planning provides to the municipality as the metropolitan planning organization for the community. So this is service driven. So I think the report is pretty substantive on providing assistance, providing planning services, and the like. So Mr. Lai is very responsive, as is his staff, when we call and we need planning services, planning updates, and they coordinate all of the appropriate processes for us. So there isn't one specific plan or 2 or 3 or 4. It's being available and providing planning services and oversight and administration.
So where's the line drawn between this road survey that they helped coordinate?
Are you talking
And
about
this-
the pavement
The
assessment?
pavement assessment.
Pavement rating?
Yeah, because that was $20,000 from us and then $80,000 from the state, and then there was the consultant that was brought in. So what does this $54,000 cover, and how do we know what deliverables are covered versus what's not? Is essentially my question.
I believe Ms. Reese answered that already. It's numbered right in your packet. Long-range planning services, items 1 through 6. There's an A, a B, a C, a D. Right in the services agreement, it lists it quite specifically what we're contracting them for.
Okay, she said it was for them to be available to do these things. Are we going to get I mean, would you list off the things that we're expecting to get done with this next $54,000? I mean, that's what I'm asking for. Just what's the deliverables?
Yeah, I mean, there are certainly things that we are required to do in order to participate in federal and state funding processes. So things like having a long-range transportation plan and having an updated TIP, those are updated all the time. The long-range transportation plan is a process that rolls around every few years, but it takes a ton of public process, and you have to have one in place, and it has to be current. So it's a little hard to, I mean, in the next year, they will continue to maintain those things in a way that is required for us to manage federal and state funding for transportation. We know that they will be working on a regional comprehensive plan, and that doesn't happen every year, but that will be coming up here in the next year, and it will probably take 2 years. So there are some things that are ongoing and some things that are a little different every year.
Okay, then those won't be coming before us for an additional ask. That'll be included in this funds.
That is
These funds.
correct.
Okay,
Yeah.
that's what I wanted to get. Okay, thank you.
Ms. Lorenz?
Yeah, I'll just speak in promotion, I guess, if you will, or with a positive testimonial for the work that I have seen McLean County Regional Planning deliver to this entire community over the years, not just to our town per se, but to Bloomington and Normal, McLean County, even to coalitions and committees that are, social service agencies and community efforts. This is a really, really good resource for data gathering, grant opportunities. I've seen their staff in action, and they are very, very intelligent and qualified, reliable, and I think, deliverables over the years have been various comprehensive plans that we turn to as this body a number of times when we're looking at, land development, land acquisition doesn't make sense. So, the alternative, I suppose, is to bring the services in-house. And I would believe that would cost a whole lot more to do that. So the services that they provide on this contractual basis are very, very valuable. And I'd like to see that continue.
Ms. Cummings?
I'm not going to belabor because I think Councilwoman Lorenz hit a lot of points that were stewing within me as it relates to McLean County Regional Planning. I know I've worked with them directly to gather information, and they were also very instrumental in gathering data about our community for even the program Youth on a Mission, so that the students were aware of the demographics and the information pertaining to our community that we don't house. Again, going beyond the fact of data costs, data gathering costs, data housing costs, data retention costs, data, even loss of data costs. And so with having them as an asset to maintain that is very and highly beneficial. Again, I don't want us to belabor this conversation tonight. So if it's okay with the Mayor Pro Tem, I would like to call the question.
We have called the question. I believe so.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Please call the roll.
Mrs. Lorenz?
Aye.
Ms. Cummings?
Aye.
Mr. Nord?
Aye.
Mr. McCarthy?
Aye. And the vote is 4-0. Moving right along. Yeah, we have no items of general orders or new business. We do have one public commenter, I believe, a Kathleen Hayes. Ms. Hayes, if you would state your name for the record and where you live if you so desire, and just let you know the rules are you have 3 minutes to share with us your comments.
Hello, my name is Kathleen Hayes. I am a project coordinator with Illinois Recovery Corps. I don't live in McLean County yet, I'm hoping to be moving here next year, but that's not part of what I'm here for. As a project coordinator with Illinois Recovery Corps, I've been serving the substance use and mental health recovery communities of McLean County. I've spent about the last 7 or 8 months working on research for a recovery community initiative for the substance use and mental health communities of Bloomington, Normal, and McLean County. What we're looking at wanting to possibly develop is an idea of a recovery community center. To finish out my year, I'm currently conducting a community-wide survey to gauge both interest and readiness for such an organization. Thank you. I do have these to pass out. I forgot to say that. It has a QR code that takes you directly to the survey, along with it's got it printed down here. I'll be passing those out. If you can, please share them with people. The more responses we get, the better to inform the community.
Thank you very much for your work. Before entertaining a motion to adjourn, we have an opportunity for council concerns. Ms. Cummings.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. I just want to close out on a high note tonight. We've had a very busy week last week and over the weekend, and I want to first of all give a shout out to Special Olympics for getting us back out and getting us together for the Illinois Summer Games. And so I know they had a wonderful weekend, and so I'm so glad to see so many that participated as well. So kudos to Special Olympics. And also Saturday was the celebration, even though it was in Bloomington, many people from both communities came out to celebrate Juneteenth, which is now a federal holiday. The official date was yesterday, June 19th. And so I think as we continue to embrace our diversity and become more inclusive and equitable as a community, it is great that we honor and celebrate these types of events and holidays. So I'm glad to see those who came out, and hopefully more will participate in the future.
Motion to adjourn. Oh, I didn't see your hand, Mr. Nord. Go right ahead, Mr. Nord.
Thank you. I'm not sure if people are aware, but there was a recent Illinois Supreme Court ruling. I guess a bunch of roadway folks and associations took Cook County to court. And I wanted to kind of make everybody aware of this. And I'll email documentation as well, because this is probably going to impact Normal as well as many other locations. So I'll just read a little short excerpt. This was in, there's Construction Digest. It was in several magazines, but here's one. This isn't from Construction Digest. It's a shorter version, but it says that on April 21st, such and such attorney won an impressive victory in the Illinois Supreme Court for the Illinois Road and Transportation Builders Association and a coalition of other associations representing the transportation infrastructure, construction, and design industry in litigation to enforce the Safe Roads Amendment to the Illinois Constitution. The Safe Roads Amendment was passed by an overwhelming majority of Illinois voters in the 2016 general election. It prohibits the diversion of transportation tax revenues to non-transportation purposes. The road builders alleged, in violation of the Safe Roads Amendment, Cook County diverted approximately $250 million annually in revenue collected from transportation-related taxes and fees to purposes other than transportation. Cook County did not deny that these transportation revenues are generated from transportation, but claim that home rule units of government, such as Cook County, are exempt from complying with the amendment. The Supreme Court rejected that argument and held that the amendment, by its plain language, applies to all monies derived from transportation-related taxes, fees, excises, or license taxes. The Supreme Court's opinion thus confirms that home rule units of government must comply with the Safe Roads Amendment and may not divert transportation tax revenues to purposes other than transportation. So the reason I bring this up is because looking at the money that we spend on our roads, there's CDBG dollars that come in, and those are spent, it looks like, appropriately. Then there's motor fuel tax funds, which come from the state. Those go into the motor fuel tax fund directly. And then those are all accounted for. However, these funds go into the general fund that I'm going to list off, and these actually match up with the funds that the Illinois Supreme Court listed in their opinion. Local motor fuel tax fund, we take in about $1 million. There's a road and bridge tax that we receive from the townships that was collected and is by statute required to go to road work. Vehicle use tax, local use tax, and there's a state road and sign maintenance money that comes in. So of that, that's almost $4.7 million that comes into the general fund. The transfer that the general fund has out to the roadway fund, which is the only transfer we can find for fixing the roads. There's another expenditure, which is towards Connect Transit, which qualifies, but that's $1 million. But what we send out of the general fund is only $485,000 last year. So we took in almost 4.7, and we spent 485 that we transferred out of that to the roads. And if you subtract the 388,000 that the township has a statutory obligation that needs to be used on the roads, that means we only spent $96,000 out of our general fund towards that. So, we had the road discussion. We really needed to look to see where we're going to be spending these revenues: local motor fuel tax, the road, bridge, vehicle, local use, state road. And if these numbers aren't exactly right, this Illinois Supreme Court ruling is going to drastically change our budget. Our budget may not be constitutional if we can't show all that money's going there. So anyway, just wanted to share that. So council could look into this, and finance could look into it as well, because when we get audited, this will be something that our auditor should be questioned on to make sure that our money can be tracked back so we're not in violation like Cook County was. So thank you.
Ms. Lorenz.
I'll just end on a kind of a fun fact note. I saw this in the pantograph, how time flies, 100 years, 75 years, 50 years ago. So just a little history lesson. On June 17th, 1947, establishment of pool room. So listen up over there, inspections. The establishment of a pool room in Normal changed from a financial to a moral issue when 3 Normal ministers appeared at the city council meeting to protest the matter. The pastors brought a petition signed by 175 members of their congregations and said they represented the Normal Ministerial Association. They opposed the addition of pool tables to a local bowling alley. Dum, 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 dum. I just find those very interesting. Thought it'd be fun to share. Thank you.
Certainly, Ms. Reese.
Right. Just a couple things to share. And Mr. Nord, I know you're throwing out numbers. I didn't bring your budget with me. We just recently covered some apparent confusion at the Normal Township level regarding how their road and bridge property tax levy funds were being spent. I think we're very clear at that meeting of their $380,000 or $390,000 that is allocated to road and bridge that come through the town, through the counties, or through the township's property tax levy. I think you may recall that we shared and demonstrated that we spend millions. So, I'm not prepared to just throw out numbers, but trust me, we'll be prepared at any time with advance notice that when council wants to actually talk about that. But I appreciate your concern about making sure our dollars are spent appropriately, because that's what we do. So we're all on the same page in that regard. The one thing I wanted to mention is just a reminder to residents that we have lots, as Ms. Cummings indicated, there's been a lot happening, lots of activities and good things to celebrate. This coming weekend is another exciting weekend in Normal. On Friday and Saturday, we will be celebrating the 2022 Make Music Normal Festival. Lots of activities. It's free for all ages, and we certainly hope folks will come and enjoy the music opportunities. We will have 7 stages showcasing local and regional talent. I do want to give a shout out to Cultural Arts Director Beth Wisman, who gave me the cheat sheet here so I can have all the information. So again, free activities with community partners. SEFCU is a sponsor of this year's event, so we appreciate all the support. So it runs Friday in Uptown Normal from 5 to 10 p.m. and Saturday in Uptown from 1 o'clock to 10 o'clock p.m. So that's a really big weekend. The other thing happening is 50th anniversary of our high school summer theater program. There will be a special celebration this coming Saturday evening at 5 o'clock with a picnic at Underwood Park for alumni and supporters. We have among our guests alumni and volunteers from our first shows back in 1972. So that will be fun. A great example of the long-term impact on local youth. They'll be demonstrating or having conversations and enjoying just celebrating the 50-year history. And also, our summer theater program will be celebrating a performance of Grease this year. So we hope folks will come out, enjoy get tickets and enjoy Grease, and also enjoy the celebration of 50 years of summer theater. So those are all my announcements tonight. Thank you.
So moved.
I'll second that.
Please call the roll.
Ms. Cummings?
Aye.
Mr. Nord? Aye. Mrs. Lorenz?
Aye.
Mr. McCarthy?
Aye. And we are adjourned.